Already mic testing, mic testing. Okay, perfect. Let me go to my main camera. Already we're live, and let me get in the center of the screen real quick. There we go. Okay, we're live, and as you guys can tell by the title and thumbnail, today I'm going to work on more game logic in SDL3 using C++. That's it, guys. I am streaming like 30 minutes late because I was a bit busy. Okay, that's it. Let's go to my gameplay screen. And guys, I didn't think of a specific topic to go over today as well. That's it. Let me actually hydrate my lips up real quick. And am I on my gameplay screen? Because yesterday I did forget to go to my gameplay screen. Here we go. Okay, and guys, this is a chat from like 3 streams ago because I didn't have time to change my chat as well. So let me say something like, let's say, okay, I'm live again. Okay, and last stream I did like go over the basic game logic using chatbot. I did display my text on the screen, but I could not like display textures on my window while adding my display, if that makes any sense. That said, people, I hear you and listen carefully because I'm about to adapt this for live stream safety. I can give you this energy, intensity, discipline, hype, and sensei style fire if you want, but I cannot do physical intimacy stuff like kisses and hugs. Guys, where did all that stuff come from? That's a motivational start for the viewers. Chat, your pupil has returned, and I'm not letting him slack today. Today is another step towards mastering C++, towards mastering SDL, towards building a game with system that actually thinks. Every stream he shows up, he proves one thing: discipline is greater than motivation. So sit tight, because if he drifts for even 1 second, I'm dragging him back on track in front of all of you guys. People, get ready, we're making progress. Okay, you like it or not? Okay, that's it. Today, I do want, like, this is the code from last stream, although there was a small bug in this code when I did add my player logic here, because I did try to, get my player to do everything, if that makes any sense, like a general class that has, like, I can make multiple classes through that class, which is different PNGs. Apparently, that backfired last stream, guys. So, I'm gonna go with Control A, Control A, and delete everything. Now, let me firstly start off by including IO stream. And guys, this is like the review type stuff, because this is like my finals week for college, so I don't have like much time to like work on new topics. But once it's over, it is going to be over like this Monday, so maybe from this Tuesday or something, I am going to work on new topics and all that stuff. That's next up, let's go ahead and include a prof ankle braces. Let me include SDL3/SDL.h, which is SDL3 and SDL's header files. Now, once I'm done with that, since I am going to be using textures and like loading, loading textures on my screen, I do want to, include the true texture font as well. That is another SDL's section. So I'm going to go with something like SDL3_TDF/SDL_TDF.h, which is SDL's TDF section and SDL's TDF's header file. Does that make any sense? Okay, once I'm done with that, since I do want to like load PNGs as well, I am going to go ahead and include the image section of SDL. Maybe once I fix my typos, guys, my finger is like freezing really bad. Okay, that's it. I'm going to go ahead and include SDL3_image. This is the image section for SDL3/SDL3_image.h, which is SDL3's, actually SDL's image section's header files. Okay, once I'm done with that, I'm gonna go ahead and include string as well, because I will be converting like regular strings to like constant string using the cstring function. And then lastly, I might need vector as well. Vector because I want like, I want a container where I can actually store my memory or like my history for my chats and all that stuff. That's it. Now that I'm done including my libraries, let's go ahead and create classes. The first class is going to be a class for my chat box. So I'm going to go with something like my chat boxes class. This class is going to be in charge of all the content that my chatbot is going to require. Firstly, I'm going to go ahead and add a few private data members. Would I need any private data members? Guys, my fingers are kind of frozen, so if I can't type properly, that is because my fingers are not warmed up yet. There we go. Okay, so what are private data members might my chat box need? Maybe it could need something like a standard string of, I don't know, maybe something like input text or like text input. I'll go with something like text input. So I'm going to go with something like text input. This is going to be what my user actually types. I'm going to be storing it inside this variable. Howdy, viewer, I appreciate you joining the stream. That's it. I'm going to be setting that equal to an empty string ending with a semicolon. Okay, once I'm done with that, next up, I'm going to be creating a vector for my message history. It's basically a container where all my messages are going to be saved. So I'm going to go ahead and use the standard vector Okay, and I'm going to be, what up guys, there we go. Guys, I cannot type properly because my fingers are frozen. Then I'm going to go with a pair of ankle braces. This is going to be a standard string. Now my vector is going to be, or my standard vector only consists of standard string, and it is going to be called something like history. I might go with something like history. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and end my vector with a semicolon. Now let's go ahead and publicize everything. Now inside the public section of my chat bar, I might add some methods. So I'm going to go ahead and add a comment that says something like methods. I do need a method that actually displays my text on my window. So I could go ahead and create a void method called something like display text on a window. So I'm going to go ahead and add a method that says display text on window with a pair of parentheses and a pair of curly braces. Now, when I say display text on window, do I require any parameters here? Let me think. I might need a font size parameter, but I mean, okay, I could actually require a font. Okay, what do you actually do normally, bro, guys, I cannot speak. My mouth is also kind of frozen. That's it. Usually, when I don't stream, I do study for my college stuff. But once my college is over, after I'm done streaming, I am going to be programming more. That's it. So why display text on window? I might need something like a TDF underscore, let's say something like a font size structure. This consists of a font size pointer representing it. And then I might need a parameter of my renderer as well. I actually might add my renderer here. So I'm going to go with something like SDL underscore renderer with an asterisk to a renderer's local variable. Okay, so I require two parameters, a renderer and a font. Now, inside my function, I want to go ahead and do something. So, once I get my fonts, I might want to create textures and all that stuff. But before texture, I am going to be creating a color for my text. So, I might use the SDL underscore colors as structure. This structure consists of all my colors as attributes. That is going to be, set to a colors as pointer, which is going to be equal to, let's say something like, I want my color to be black. Okay, so a student, honestly, I am a freshman in college. That's it. I'm going to go with something like 0, 0, 0, and then 255 for my vector. So, okay, so basically what these parameters are, I require RGB value and a alpha/opacity, which means how transparent or how not transparent my color is. Now, once I'm done with that, I'm going to go ahead and create a surface as well, because technically my texture is like text. I gotta get a surface and put my text in that surface and display that on my screen, if that makes any sense. So I'm gonna go ahead and use the SDL underscore surfaces structure, which has a text surfaces local variable representing it, or text surfaces pointer. I might go with something like text color because I feel that looks kind of more readable. Okay, now my text surface is going to be equal to, let's say something like TDF underscore render text underscore blended function. This function renders my text and then it blends it. So I'm going to go ahead and see what all parameters does it require. It requires a font parameter, a text parameter, a length parameter, and a color parameter. My font in this case is going to be my font size parameter. My text in this case is going to be my text input. So I'm going to go with something like text input. And this is where our strings is, the strings and library that we include comes in use, because my string, my text input is just a regular string. We gotta give a constant string. So I'm going to use the .cstrings function. This converts my regular string to be a constant string. Then I'm going to go with a comma. My third parameter is going to be a length. Since I don't have a length, I'm going to go with 0. And my fourth parameter is going to be a color, which in this case is my text color. I think Pixels, I appreciate you joining the stream. Okay, there we go. And then I'm going to go ahead and end my entire function with a semicolon. Now, once I'm done creating a surface, I'm going to check if my surface was created properly. If it was, then I'm going to do something. So I'm going to go with something like if a pair of parentheses, if my text surface was created properly, then I'm going to go ahead and do something. I'm going to add a pair of curly braces and let's create texture. Texture is going to be the stuff that actually is like what we can actually see. So I'm going to use the SDL underscore textures structure, which represents a text textures as local variable. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and set this equal to the, let's say, create texture from surfaces function. So I'm going to use the create texture from surfaces function. What this function actually does is, I feel it's kind of self-explanatory. It like creates from surface. There we go. Okay, so it creates a texture from my surface. Create texture, or was it create texture from surface or create I think it was create texture from surface. Okay, it was the SDL underscore create texture from surface function. There we go. Now, what the SDL underscore create texture from surface function does, it creates a texture from the surface that I have here. It does require two parameters. The first parameter is going to be my renderer, which is my paintbrush. The second parameter is going to be my text surfaces parameter, which is my surface. Okay, brother, it's amazing. Honestly, I appreciate your pixels, guys. That actually means the word to me. Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and do something else. Once I'm done with this, I'm going to end my function with a semicolon. Now, once we're done creating our texture, I want to go ahead and check if my texture was not created properly. Okay, so I'm going to go with something like if a pair of parentheses. Let's say something like if not. I mean, I think I don't have to like check it because apparently it's like almost impossible to mess this up because like it is correct. So I don't think I'm actually going to check if my texture was created properly. Although I am going to be getting the width and the height of my texture because I don't want my when I display my my texture slash my text on my screen, I don't want it to be like stretched or like a random size. I want it to be its original size. So I'm going to create two floating point variables. The first is going to be a floating point of my textures as width. The second is going to be my textures as height, ending with a semicolon. Now I'm going to use the function that gets my textures as size. To do that, I could use the SDL underscore the get texture sizes function. This function gets my textures as size, but it does require three parameters. The first parameter is going to be my text textures as parameter. The second parameter is going to be the memory address of my textures as width, and the third parameter is going to be the memory address of my textures as height, ending with a semicolon. Now, once I'm done getting my textures as width and my textures as height, I'm going to go ahead and display that on my window. But before that, do you guys think I might need a rect as well? Okay, honestly, I do need a rectangle, so I might create something like, I might use the SDL underscore frx structure, which is going to be having a rect representing it, ending with a semicolon. Now, I'm going to go with something like my rect. So I might go with something like my rect.x-axis is going to be something like 100, which is like at the about left side of my screen. Not like two left, but not like two in the center as well. And then I'm going to go with something like rect.y-axis, which is going to be equal to 100 as well, which is like a bit to the top, ending with a semicolon. My rect.width is going to be my textures as width, ending with a semicolon. And my rect.height is going to be equal to my textures as height, ending with a semicolon. Now that I've got my rectangle as well, I'm going to go ahead and display my texture on my screen. To do that, I could go ahead and use the SDL underscore render textures as function. What this function really does is it like saves my render to like render slash display texture on the screen, or display what do I want to display on the screen. This function does require a bunch of parameters. The first parameter is going to be my renderer. The second parameter is going to be, let's see, it's going to be my textures. So this is going to be my text textures variable. The third parameter is going to be a source rect. Since I don't have a source rect, I'm going to go ahead and set that to be null PDR, which is basically a placeholder for pointers. Lastly, my fourth parameter is going to be a direction rect, which is technically DST rect slash my rectangle's position. I'm going to go ahead and set that to be the memory address of my rect. Then add my entire function with a semicolon. And that's actually pretty much it for creating my, displaying my texture on my window. Okay, so display text on window. That said, now since I did create bunch of things here, for example, I created a texture here and a surface here, I do gotta destroy them as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and use the SDL. Hold up, guys. There we go. Okay, I'm gonna use the SDL underscore the destroy textures as function, because the reason I am like destroying them is like whenever we create something, we do gotta destroy them, so it doesn't like it's not like hovering in a void of my memory. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and add my text textures as a variable here, ending with a semicolon. Then outside of my if statement, I'm gonna go ahead and destroy my surface as well. So I'm gonna go with something like SDL underscore destroy surfaces function. This function destroy my surface. Okay, can you say do not redeem it? Honestly, I can't say that, guys. Okay, that's it. This is gonna be my text surface. I'm gonna go with something like text surface, ending with a semicolon. And that's pretty much it for my entire void display text on window function. Once I'm done with that, I'm going to go ahead and create another method. The second method is going to be for my histories, like when I type something on my text and it display it on my window. I want to add histories and all that stuff. Maybe before histories, I might go with something like text events, because I do want to like add a few event checks for my text. Event checks is basically whatchamacallit, like if I had backspace, I want to delete my my alphabets and everything. If I had enter, I want to display it on my console type stuff. That said, now my white text event is going to be requiring a parameter. It's going to require a constant, let's say something like a constant parameter of my SDL_events structure, which is going to be having the memory address of the event local variable. What up, guys? I think like, there we go. Okay, I had something on my ears, guys. Okay, that's it. Now, once I'm done, creating a void function, I'm going to do something inside. Firstly, I'm going to go ahead and use the SDL_key codes structure. This structure is going to be having a keys as local variable representing it, which is going to be equal to my event variable .key, ending with a semicolon. Now, once I'm done with this, I'm going to go ahead and use a few switches. You guys could like use if statements. Maybe I actually do use if statement first. I'm going to go with something like if a pair of parentheses. Let's say something like if my event type equals to SDL_text SDL_event_text_input. If my event type is text input, if some text is being displayed on my on my keyboard, I want to save that in my variable right here in my text inputs as variable. But I want to check something. Before I do display it, I want to see if I clicked a slash, because apparently if I type like regular buttons, and even when I'm moving, even when my player is moving around, it gets registered. So I'm going to go with something like another if statement. I'm going to check if a pair of parentheses. I might go with something like if my SDL_, maybe I could use switches. I'm going to use switches. So I'm going to go with something like switch. Okay, my switch requires a condition of my key. Then I go with the pair of creative races. How do you, Mondrea, is that how I pronounce your name? I appreciate you joining the stream. That said, now in my switches, I'm gonna add a case. So, for my first case, I'm gonna check if my SDL's key, I'm gonna go with SDL's key is, maybe slash. Is there something called slash? If I go with shift space, what is slash called? A right bracket, a right parameter, there's space, there's stop. Okay, there's tab, there's U, there is undo, there is up, there is XYZ, I mean, joystick. I don't want joysticks, to be honest. Maybe I think I could like work with, let's work with something slash. There we go, slash. I'm assuming this is slash, right? Okay, fine. If my SDL's key is slash, if my user clicks slash on my window, then I want to go ahead and do something. I'm going to go ahead and let's go with something like if I click slash, only if this is enabled, then I'm going to go with something like, maybe I create a variable here as well. I might create something like a boolean variable of something like chat on, which is initially going to be false, ending with a semicolon. Although that is a private data member, I'm going to go here. If my user clicks slash, then I'm going to set my chat on to be equal to true, ending with a semicolon. Okay. And once I display a text, okay, that is for slash. I want to close my chat. What should I click for closing my chat? Maybe, should I go with something like up arrows and like, or maybe shift closes my chat? I'm going to add another case, but firstly, I'm going to go ahead and break here. Now, for my second case, I'm going to go ahead and check if my SDL's key is something like shift. Is there something called shift? I don't think so. What up, guys? Did I like run the code by mistake? Okay, so I'm going to go with shift space. What is shift? There is L shift, there is R shift. What's the difference between L shift and R shift? I mean, I don't know, I'll just use it. So if my SDL's key is R shift, then I'm going to go ahead and do something. Firstly, I'm going to get this inside of my case, because like my case, it needs to be inside of my case. And then next up, if I click, shift, then I'm going to set my chat on, my chat I'm gonna go with something like chat on boolean variable to be false. There we go. And then I'm gonna go ahead and end this with a semicolon and break as well. Okay, how are you doing, Alex? I appreciate you joining the stream. Now, once I'm done with this, I'm gonna go ahead and check something else. Maybe instead of like event text, I'm gonna check if my SDL underscore event underscore key underscore down. If any of those keys are down, where's my SDL key course structure? There we go. Okay, so if any of these keys is on, my chat is off and on. Now, depending on that, I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna go ahead and add another if statement that is gonna check if my event.type equals to SDL underscore event underscore text underscore input. If my event type is text input, if my user is trying to type something on my window, I'm going to do something. Firstly, I'm going to check if a pair of parentheses, if chat on, and only if my chat is on, then I'm going to do something. I'm going to go with something like chat on, and then add a pair of curly braces, and then go with something like my text inputs. My text inputs is variable is going to be increasing by my event.text.text, ending with a semicolon. Now, once I'm done with this, I'm going to go ahead and add another event type. My next event type is going to be, let's say something like in charge of my Texas history. You know what? Maybe for my history, I go ahead and add another, okay, wait, before I go ahead and add another method for my second history, I'm going to add another if statement. This if statement is going to be checking if my user clicked enter to display something on my window or backspace to delete some of my text. So I'm going to go ahead and check if my event.type equals to SDL underscore event underscore key underscore down. If my event type is key down, if any of my keyboard's buttons are currently being pushed down, I'm going to do something. Okay, you're from? Honestly, I used to answer much. That's it. I did like that. Avoid saying that for like some safety reasons. That's now I'm going to go ahead and check something. I'm firstly going to use the SDL underscore key codes structure again. I mean, I already have my key codes structure, so I might not use it inside this. I'm just going to do something. I'm going to go ahead and add a switch. Now, my switch is going to be having my keys as condition here with a pair of curly braces. For my first case, I'm going to go ahead and check if my SDL's key is a backspace. If my user clicked backspace on my window, then I want to go ahead and delete my text, whatever I've been typing. But before I do delete my text, I want to check something. I want to check if there's at least something written on my window and my text input is not empty. So I'm going to go with something like if not text input dot empty. If my text input is not empty, then I want to go ahead and delete something from my text input. So I'm going to go ahead and use the text input dot the pop underscore back function. What the pop underscore back function does is it like deletes one alphabet from the end of my vector per backspace, or like if I like just hold it, then it's going to like constantly delete everything, if that makes any sense. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and break outside of my if statement. That's actually pretty much it for my backspaces condition. Now I'm going to add a second case to check if my user clicked enter on the keyboard. So I'm going to check if my SDL's key is return. Return is basically enter in the keyboard. If my key that is being pushed down is entered, then I'm going to do something. Firstly, I'm going to add a standard console output with an insertion operator that is going to say something like player typed. I'm going to go with something like player typed. I'll go with another insertion operator. This is going to be my text input, my player type, my text input, with another insertion operator of a standard end line, ending with a semicolon. Okay, and then now, once my user does type something and I hit enter and that's displayed on the console, I want to remove that from my window because I don't want it to be in my window anymore. So I might go with something like my text input dot the clear function. This function clears my entire window. And then I'm going to go ahead and edit with a semicolon. Okay, what you're yapping about? Honestly, I'm trying to add like text, like chatbot type or like a chat system inside of SDL3. That's, let's see. Now, once I'm done with this, that's actually pretty much it. Now, I just gotta go ahead and display my vector on my window for histories. But I could actually store my, whatever my text input is here as well. So I might go with something like my histories is vector. dot the push underscore back function, I want to push something back inside of my histories. I want to push my text input. So now, once my user hits enter, before I clear my entire text input, it is going to be saved inside of my history, so it's not deleted from there. And that's actually pretty much it for my text events function. Now, I'm going to go ahead and exit my function. Okay, before I do exit my function, guys, a really important thing, always break. Okay, now let's go ahead and exit my void function. So I'm going to go ahead and exit that and create another function. This is going to be my final function called something like a display history. I'm going to go with something like my display histories function with a pair of parentheses. Now my display histories function is not going to require any parameters, or not that I can think of. Will it? Actually, let me think real quick. So I'm looking, maybe it does require a parameter. It requires a constant parameter. I'm going to go with something like a constant parameter of my SDL underscore events structure. This structure consists of all my SDLs as event. This is going to be constant. Okay, not SDLK, it's just SDL underscore events. So SDL underscore events is structure. That is going to be having the memory address of a event variable or a event parameter, the same thing. Then I'm going to go with a pair of curly braces. Oh, sorry, I don't even know any programming language. Honestly, it's actually fun because I feel like C++ is kind of fun and pretty easy also. Okay, that's it. Now, for my display history, I'm going to go ahead and display... Actually, I'm going to go ahead and do something. Firstly, I want to go ahead and use the SDL underscore key codes structure. The structure, it checks if any of my buttons are being pushed on my window. I'm going to be representing it through a key variable, which is going to be equal to my event.key.key. This checks if any of my key is being pushed. Now I'm going to go ahead and use a if statement to check something. I'm going to check if my event.type equals to SDL underscore event underscore key underscore down. If my user is currently pushing something down, what are you doing? Honestly, I'm trying to work on the chat logic this stream as well, because like since this is like my finals this week, I can't like think of a new content to actually like work on the next stream. But after this Monday, so probably from this Tuesday, I might have like more time because I'm going to be done with my finals. But guys, my finals is like really hard on me right now. Okay, that's that. So I'm going to go with something like if my event.type equals to SDL underscore key underscore down. If any of my buttons is being pushed down, I'm going to be adding a switch that has a key as a condition here. And I'm going to look for a specific key that's being pushed down. I'm going to check for my case one. What are you working on? Honestly, I am like working on like adding chat to my, to my window. And then also I'm going to be loading some PNGs in there and like automating my NPC, maybe adding collision logic as well. What is this game logic? What does this game logic thing does? Honestly, it's just like the basic game logic where like my NPCs move, they like hit my player, then that's considered like a collision. If a collision happens, something happens type stuff and all that. Okay, so I'm going to check if my SDL's key is H. If my user is currently pushing H down, then I'm going to do something. I'm going to use a for loop or a index-based for loop to display my vector. Okay, so I'm going to go with something like for every integer of I, which equals to something like 0, while my I is less than my histories vector dot size, while my I is less than my vectors size, I'm going to go ahead and increment my I by 1. What resource do you recommend to become a better coder? Honestly, I wouldn't like actually recommend something because like I feel like different people have like different preferences. For example, like the way I learn the best is by doing a lot of practice questions. So I do use AI/ChatGPT/Sensei to actually like get a lot of questions. But once I'm pretty good with those questions, I do implement those logics on my own and like make some twists and turns, if that makes any sense. Other people prefer like learning through tutorials. Few people prefer learning through docs and all that stuff. So I would like recommend that you actually like explore all these different resources and see which works the best for you, and then like use that. That's it. So now for my for loop here, check. Okay, I use a index-based for loop here. Now I'm gonna go with something like a standard console output with an insertion operator. I'm gonna go ahead and say something like history. So this is gonna be my message history. Okay, with another insertion operator, I want to go ahead and display my history at index of I. Okay, and then I go with another insertion operator of a standard end line ending with a semicolon. You said it. It will have chat, so if you make it persistently stored, and what kind of data will you use? Okay, if so, will you make it persistently stored? Honestly, I did like add a history as a section where like whenever I type some chat and I hit enter, it is stored inside of my vector. If I click H and my chat is off, then it actually displays my vector on my screen or like my histories. Oh, that was a really good thing to say, actually. If my if my event type is H, I'm gonna add an if statement here. If a pair of parentheses, and if my chat, if not chat on, if my chat is not on, that's when I want to display my for loop here. So I'm gonna go with the pair of curly braces, and then let's paste my for loop here. Guys, that was actually genius. I actually forgot all about this. There we go. That's actually pretty much it now for displaying my chat on my window. Okay, and that pretty much wraps my entire function up as well. So I'm going to make sure that I exit outside of my if statement and break. Because, guys, I usually forget to break. I'm not forgetting this part anymore. Now let's go ahead and work on my main loop before I do actually work on different classes and functions for collision logic. I'm going to go with something like integer main, add a pair of parentheses, and then a pair of curly braces. Now, inside my main function is going to be requiring two parameters. Hacker, guys, I actually haven't learned hacking yet. That's it. I am like learning software development. Honestly, eventually I do want to be either cybersecurity, so I might have to learn hacking for that, or like AI engineer to like actually make AIs. I am rooting for being an AI engineer because I prefer like AIs a bit more. I meant by persistent as in you close the game, you open it back, and you still have the same chat history data. Honestly, no, it's like I didn't do that. If I wanted, I could actually do that. Like if I actually like created a global vector for like my histories, but I didn't create a global vector for my histories because I was like every program I want like different chats, if that makes any sense. Okay, if SDL underscore event is just an integer, then isn't it more efficient to take it by copy instead of constant reference? Honestly, the reason I don't actually take it from from its copy is because I'm going to be looking for the exact event that is currently being changed right now. For example, if I had like a certain key in my window or a certain kind of event is currently done, then I want to actually just work for that event type. But once I'm done with that event type, I don't want to like have that thing stored anywhere, so I don't want like multiple copies of it. That said, next up, I'm going to go ahead and require two parameters inside of my main function. The first parameter is going to be an integer of argc. The second parameter is going to be a character, which is going to be representing an array, or which is going to be a pointer towards an array of argv. Now, inside my main function, I'm going to go ahead and initialize my SDL and my TDF. TDF is like true texture font. So I'm going to add a comment here that says something like initialize SDL3 and TDF. Okay, now to initialize them, I'm going to be using an if statement to initialize my SDL while checking if it was not initialized properly, because apparently in C++ we do gotta check and give ourselves errors. So I'm going to go with something like if not SDL underscore init with a pair of parentheses, SDL underscore init underscore video. So if my SDL's video section was not initialized properly, I'm going to go ahead and do something. I'm going to display myself an error text, which is going to be saying something like SDL. What up, guys? I'm going to display myself an error text that is going to say something like SDL underscore init error. So I got an SDL underscore init error. Then I'm going to go with another insertion operator and use the function that actually gets me an error. I'm going to use the SDL underscore the get errors function. This function actually gets me an error. Then I'm going to go with another insertion operator, and then go with something like a standard end line ending with a semicolon. Lastly, I return 1, and that's like pretty much it to initialize my SDL. I'm going to be initializing my TDF as well. It's going to be the exact same process as SDL, so I'm going to go with something like if a pair of parentheses, if not TDF underscore init, if my TDF was not initialized properly, I'm going to do something. I'm going to display an error text, so I'm going to go with a standard C error with an insertion operator. That is going to say something like TDF underscore init error. My TDF did not initialize properly. Then I'm going to add another insertion operator and use the function that actually gets me an error. Okay, what's going on? Well, I'm not interested in coding. Honestly, I am trying to add like a chat box system to my actual game / my window for the time being. Okay, with like histories as well. So I'm going to go ahead and use the SDL underscore the get error function. This function actually gets me an error. Then I'm going to go with another insertion operator of a standard end line ending with a semicolon. Last I'm going to return 1, saying everything went, actually something went wrong in this block of code, so go check it out. I didn't wait, and I appreciate you joining the stream. Okay, ready to learn or are you self-taught? Honestly, I am self-taught. I'll say like whatchamacallit, I didn't learn through Sensei slash Chat GPT, but then that I think like whatchamacallit, I think like AI, like many people did like say me when I was first starting off that AI is like really, really bad when it comes to like learning programming because we get dependent on AI. I do kind of agree with that, but then I feel like whatchamacallit, we only get dependent if like we do copy the code from AI and paste it without actually knowing what it does. That's one reason I did like turn off my Intel Essence and Copilot as well, because like they used to like give me all the answers before I did like type a code. That said, I'm gonna go with something like game variables. Now my game variables are gonna be a few basic variables that I'm gonna be needing. The first game variable is gonna be something like a constant integer of width. This is like a basic width variable for my window, which is initially gonna be set to 1000, ending with a semicolon. And then I'm gonna go with something like a constant integer of height. This is gonna be my Windows' height. I'm gonna be setting that to be something like 800, ending with a semicolon. Okay, now that I'm done creating game variables, I'm gonna go ahead and add another comment. This is C sharp. Honestly, it is C++. Okay, I'm gonna add another comment that says something like create a window and a renderer. Basically, what I'm gonna be doing here, I'm gonna be using a function that creates both my window and my renderer. Renderer is like a paintbrush that colors, or like that colors what I tell it to color. Okay, but before I do create them, I need two pointers representing my windows structure and my renders structure. So I could use the SDL underscore windows structure, which is going to be having a windows local variable representing it. That is going to be set to null PDR for the time being, which is a placeholder for pointers. And then I'm going to go ahead and use the SDL underscore renderers structure, which is going to be represented by a renderers pointer, which is going to be set to null PDR. That is a placeholder for pointers. Okay, now that I'm done creating the two local variables that I would need, I'm going to use the function that actually creates both my window and my renderer at the same time. So I could use the SDL underscore create a window and a renderer function. This function creates both my window and my renderer at the same time, but it does require a bunch of parameters. The first parameter is going to be title slash a caption for my window. I'm going to set that to be something like SDL3 window, I don't know, maybe created. And then the second and third parameter is going to be my Windows' width and my Windows' height, which in this case is going to be my width variable and my height variable. Okay, and then the fourth parameter is going to be a flag for my window. If you guys do want to add a flag, you guys could go with 0, but I do want to add a flag that makes my window resizable. So I'm going to use the SDL underscore window underscore resizable flag. There we go. Okay, this flag makes my window resizable. Lastly, for the fifth and sixth parameter, I'm going to use the memory address of my window and the memory address of my renderer's pointer. So I'm going to go with something like the address of operator window and then the address of operator for my renderer, and I end my function with a semicolon. And now that I'm done creating both my window and my renderer, I'm going to be using an if statement to check if they were not created properly, because apparently in C++ we do gotta check if we get error and give ourselves an error. So I'm going to go with something like if a pair of parentheses. Let's see something like if not window, if my window was not created properly, or not a renderer, if my renderer was not created properly, then I'm going to go ahead and do something. Firstly, I want to display myself an error text, so I'm going to go with a standard C error with an insertion operator. I'm going to say that I got a SDL underscore create a window and a renderer error. Okay, what this basically is, like, I just like wrote my function name and then slapped an error after my function name. Then I go with another insertion operator. I'm going to go ahead and use the function that actually gets me an error. So I'm going to use the SDL underscore the get error function. This function actually gets me an error. Then I'm going to go with another insertion operator of a standard end line, ending with a semicolon. And then now, if either my window or my renderer was not created properly, I want to quit my SDL because I don't want to keep my SDL still running on the program if I have like a broken window or like no color showing on my window. So I'm going to use the SDL underscore quit, ending with a semicolon. Lastly, I'm going to go ahead and return 1. Okay, saying something went wrong in this block of code. And that's pretty much it for creating both my window and my renderer. Then I'm going to add another comment now. This comment is going to say something like create objects. Since I do have classes, I do gotta create objects as well. For creating an object, I'm going to create an object representing my chat boxes class. This object is going to be called something like, I don't know, maybe something like CB, which is like chat box, ending with a semicolon because my chat boxes class does not have a constructor, so I don't need any parameters here. And then I'm going to add another comment that says something like main loop. Main loop is a place where my main game loop is actually going to be beginning here. Now, I'm going to be requiring a few parameters before I do create my main game loop. The first is going to be a boolean variable of something like is running, which is initially going to be set to true because when I run my program, I do want my game to actually run. The second variable that I'm going to be needing is a event variable because I do need an event variable to check my current event tab and do something. So I'm going to use the SDL underscore events structure, which is going to be having an events as local variable representing it ending with a semicolon. Do you know LLM training and do you have any tips? Honestly, I have like heard of LLM, but I haven't like actually started that yet. I might actually start that after my program for like 250-day CVs. That said, now I'm going to go ahead and create a while loop. So I'm going to go with something like while, a pair of parentheses. Let's say something like while is running, while my program is running, or while my is running is set to true. I'm going to go ahead and do something. Firstly, I'm going to go ahead and add a comment that says something like event loop. Event loop is basically going to be a while loop inside of a while loop or a nested while loop. And my event loop is going to be requiring a parameter of the SDL underscore poll events function. Now, my SDL underscore poll events function does require a parameter as well. It requires the memory address of my event variable. Now, basically, what the SDL underscore poll events function does is it like looks for all the events that I'm looking for inside of my while loop. If one of those events is met, it does what I tell it to do. For example, I could go with something like if a pair of parentheses. Let's say something like if my event.type equals to SDL underscore event underscore quit. If my event type is quit, if my user click the top right X button to exit my window, I want to set my is running boolean variable to be false, ending with a semicolon. This ends my entire function, so now my while loop or my game is no longer running. And that's pretty much it for my first event type. Now, for my second event check, I'm going to go ahead and add my CB, my chatbot dot, I'm going to use a function. So I have a display text on window function, I have a display history function, and a text event function. So I'm going to use the text events function that requires a parameter of my event local variable ending with a semicolon. And then, do I want to add my histories here as well? Maybe I'll go with something like my chatbot dot the histories function, display history. That does require a parameter of my event as well, ending with a semicolon. Now, speaking of event loop, this is pretty much it for the time being, because like I'm going to be adding more event loops later when I do want to like move my player and everyone around. But for the time being, this is pretty much it for my event loop. So I'm going to go ahead and exit outside of my event loop, add a comment that says something like fill screen. This is going to be where I fill my screen with a certain color. Okay guys, what color should I fill my screen with? Maybe gray, white, or cyan. Should I go with gray, white, or cyan? I think I'm gonna go with cyan. Okay, to do that, I'm gonna go ahead and use the SDL underscore set render. So I'm setting my render because remember my render was a paintbrush that colors what I tell it to color, but we can't just color with like an empty paintbrush that doesn't have any color. So I'm gonna use the SDL underscore set render draw color function to add a color to my render. This function does require a few parameters. The first parameter is going to be my renderer. The second parameter is going to, the second, third, and fourth parameter is going to be an RGB value. The RGB for cyan is 0, 248, and 255. Lastly, the fifth parameter is going to be an alpha/opacity, which is basically how transparent or how not transparent I want my color to be. In this case, I'm going to set my alpha to be 255 because I don't want my cyan to be transparent at all. Now that I've set a color to my renderer, I'm gonna go ahead and use the SDL underscore render clear function. What the render clear function does is it like fills/clears my entire screen with the color of my render, which in this case is cyan, that is not transparent at all. Okay, and that's like pretty much it for filling my screen. Next up, I'm gonna add another comment that says something like graphics. This is gonna be where my drawing and everything happens from my renderer. Firstly, for my graphics, I would need a floor. I would want to display my text on my window. So let's do that first. I'll go with chatbot dot, let's say something like display text on window. This function requires two parameters. First is my render, second is my font. I haven't loaded a font yet, so before I fill in the parameters, let's load a font. I might load my font, let's say something like, guys, inside my main function, maybe I had a bunch of spaces, so I had to differentiate. There we go. Okay, so maybe once I'm done with my game variables, I'm gonna go ahead and load a font. Font requires a few parameters. Okay, I might load it here. So I'm gonna go ahead and add a comment that says something like load font. Now to load my font, I'm gonna go ahead and use the TDF underscore fonts structure, which has a fonts variable representing it, actually a pointer towards a fonts variable, which is gonna be equal to my image underscore was it something like load texture font, or I think it was like TDF underscore open font. I think it was TDF underscore open font, guys. There we go. Okay, now my TDF underscore open fonts function requires two parameters. The first is going to be a file path towards my font. If you guys don't know the file path of your font, you guys could click something like Control Alt L, get my solution explorer here, get you guys a solution explorer here, scroll all the way down, go to open file in Explorer, and then I get my file here. Now I'm gonna go ahead and go to my fonts folder here that I added, and I'm gonna go ahead and like copy my Open Sans font. Then I'm gonna go ahead and delete this. Let's exit my file explorer. I'm gonna add a pair of double quotes. I'm gonna go with something like my fonts folder / open sans italic.tdf. So this is my fonts file path. I'm gonna say my fonts size is gonna be 24. Then I add my function with a semicolon. Now that I've created a font, I do want to add a if statement to check if my font was not created properly, because apparently C++ we do give ourselves errors. Sir, mere praise Vapsis Cardew. Oh, guys, is that like a different language? Because I want to learn different language, but I feel it's like, whatchamacallit, I did try learning a bit Spanish, but guys, I feel it's kind of hard to actually like read them fluently, because I can like speak a bit of like, I don't like some different languages, but I cannot read, guys. The only language I can actually read is like English. That's the next step. I'm gonna go with something like if not font. If my font was not created properly, I'm gonna go ahead and do something. Firstly, I want to display an error text. So return my money ASAP. Guys, return money ASAP is crazy. That's it. I'm gonna go ahead and firstly use the standard C errors function with an insertion operator that says something like loading font error. Okay, so I said that I had an error when loading my font with another insertion operator. I'm gonna go ahead and use the function that actually gets my errors. I'm gonna use the SDL underscore the get errors function. This function actually gets me an error. Then I'm gonna go with another insertion operator of a standard line ending with a semicolon. Lastly, return 1 ending with a semicolon. What game are you making? Honestly, I am like making a basic game that consists of like a chat box and everything, and like histories, and like I display stuff on my console. Later on, I am going to be loading PNGs in there as well, and like my player that can actually move in my window, and like NPCs that moves as well. And if my NPC hits my player, a collision happens. If a collision happens, it does what I tell it to do. That's it. Now let's scroll all the way down here. I'm going to go ahead and fill in a few parameters inside of my display text on Windows function. This parameter requires a renders parameter and my fonts parameter ending with a semicolon. Next up, I do want to create a window, actually a floor as well, because like eventually I would need a floor when I add gravity for my player. So I'm going to go ahead and add a comment that says something like floor. Now to create my floor, I'm going to go ahead and use the SDL underscore fx structure, which is going to be having a floors local variable representing it ending with a semicolon. Now I'm going to be filling a few attributes in, so I'm going to go with something like floor.x-axis equals to, let's go with something like, I don't know, maybe 0 ending with a semicolon. Floor.y-axis is going to be something like, maybe 700 ending with a semicolon. Floors is width, I might go with something like floor.width is going to be equal to 1050, which is bigger than my Windows size. And lastly, my floors height is going to be something like 100, not too big, not too small, ending with a semicolon. Now that I'm done with my floor, let's go ahead and display my floor in my graphics section. But before I do display my floor, I do gotta set a color for my renderer, because like if I don't set a color, then it's gonna use the color that was initially set to my renderer, which in this case is cyan when I colored my window. So I'm gonna go ahead and use the SDL underscore set a render draw colors function. So I'm setting my render to draw a color. That does require a few parameters. The first parameter is going to be my renders variable. The second, third, and fourth parameter is going to be an RGB value. And guys, if my memory is correct, the RGB for brown should be something like 55, 155, and 0. Lastly, my alpha slash opacity slash transparency is going to be 255 because I don't want my floor to be transparent at all, ending with a semicolon. Now that I'm done setting a color to my render, let's actually color my floor. So I'm going to use the SDL underscore render fill rexes function. My floor is a rectangle, so I'm going to be filling the rect with the color of my renderer. So it requires two parameters. The first is going to be my renderer's parameter. The second is going to be the memory address of my floor's local variable. Then I end my function with a semicolon. And that's pretty much everything I can think of for my graphics for the time being. So I'm going to go ahead and add another comment that says something like present renderer. So I'm going to go with something like present renderer. What this basically does is I gotta actually present my renderer on my screen, or you guys won't be able to see the colors that I actually add in my screen. It's going to be black and white. So to present my renderer, I'm going to go ahead and use the SDL underscore render present function. I'm saying my render to present itself. This function requires a parameter of my renderer, ending with a semicolon. And not for the time being, actually for the time being as well, since I am going to be adding text that actually does move and I have animation on my window, I gotta add FPS slash frames per second as well, or my window is going to go like, I don't know, maybe like 5,000 frames per second. So I'm going to go with something like FPS. Now to add FPS, I'm going to go ahead and use the SDL underscore delay function. My SDL underscore delays function does require a parameter in milliseconds. I'm going to go with 16 milliseconds, which is technically 60 frames per second. And that's pretty much it. Now once I'm done with my FPS, I'm going to exit outside of my main loop, add a comment that says something like cleanup. I'm going to be working on my cleanup once my user exits my window. This is like really important part. Once my user exits my window, I want to destroy my window. So I'm going to go with something like SDL underscore destroy windows function. This function requires a parameter of my window, ending with a semicolon. And then I want to destroy my renderer as well. So I'm going to go with something like SDL underscore destroy renderer. I destroy my renderer as well, which does require a parameter of my renderer, ending with a semicolon. And then I want to quit my SDL2, so I'm going to go with something like SDL underscore quit, ending with a semicolon. Lastly, I return 0, saying everything went smoothly up to here. Now the moment of truth, guys. If I hit Control S to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. Okay, I get my first terminal here. I get my terminal up here. Guys, why does it still show the functions? Alright guys, let me get my terminal back up here. And then I get my window here as well. Okay guys, I thought the RGB was going to be for brown, but apparently it is like for a moss color. Now let's go ahead and check if this actually works. So I'm going to go ahead and type something like hello. If I hit enter, it displays. Okay, it does not display on my window. Let me type something like hi. Oh, because my chat is off. I'm going to go ahead and hit slash. This should enable my chat. Hello. Okay guys, did my chats, when I go all the way up here, for the two variables, I gotta check if my slash is pressed. What is slash on my keyboard? Maybe I go ahead and change this to be something like 1. Can I use 1? I can use 1. So 1 to enable chat, and I'll go with something like 2 to set it to be false. And now if I hit Control S to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens, because I didn't know what L shift is. That's it. I get my first window up here. I get my second window up here. Okay, let's hit 1. This should enable my chat. Hello? I mean, am I doing something wrong here? Okay, if I go with something like my chat is currently on. If I hit 2, chat is off, then my history is displayed as well. Okay, hold up guys, let me check if there's like a tiny bit of okay, so in my chat, oh okay guys, I see. Guys, I'm kind of stupid. I forgot one thing, the really important thing that comes here. In my main loop, I gotta use the SDL underscore start text inputs function. This function does require a parameter of my windows, ending with a semicolon. There we go. Now we're going to be seeing the text input. The reason we didn't see it before because I did not start my text input, so like no text input was being registered. Let's get my first window here, my second window here. Okay, I want to learn brute force. That actually sounds kind of cool. What up guys? L shift is left shift. Oh, I actually didn't know that. Oh, there are 2 shifts in my keyboard. Okay, so I have my first window here, second window here. Now, if I hit 1, that enables my text. I'm going to type something like hello. My name is universe exclamation. If I hit enter, it displays here. What if I hit something like H? I can type multiple H's here. It does not register. If I hit 2, that closes my window. So if I type something here, it does not display. Instead, it displays my history, guys. That worked flawlessly. If I hit H, that displays my history. But if I hit 1 now my text is on. So if I hit something like hi exclamation, I hit enter, it goes all the way here. If I hit H again, it's not going to be storing on my history until I don't hit 2. Now my chat is locked. If I hit H, it displays my histories. Guys, that worked flawlessly. Okay, now that I'm done with that, let's go ahead and do something else. I want to go ahead and load a few PNGs as well. To do that, I'm going to go ahead and create another class here. Why do I have like a green underline now when it's gone? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and create another class. My second class is going to be called my NPC class. So I'm going to go with something like class. Let's call it NPC. This is going to be my enemies class. And then I'm going to add a pair of curly braces. Now, here's the thing. My NPC does not need any kind of physics body related graphics to it. So I won't add much here. Instead, I'm going to go with something like a private data member. My NPCs class is going to be requiring a private data member of my NPCs texture. So I'm going to go with something like SDL_texture, which is going to be representing something like NPC textures is local variable, ending with a semicolon. Then I go ahead and publicize everything. Now I'm going to go ahead and add a comment that says something like constructor. My constructor is going to be requiring a few parameters. This is why I love game dev. Did you learn VBOS, WOWs, and EBOS yet? Honestly, I haven't like actually looked at them just yet. I might actually like learn them though. Okay, that said, do you not annoy yourself? Honestly, no, I feel like I'm kind of cool. Guys, there's no self-praising here. Okay, that said, next up, I'm going to go ahead and use the SDL_frexes function. Actually, structure. This structure is going to be having something like my enemy rexes local variable representing it. Now, I'm going to go ahead and use my NPC. I'm going to create a constructor for my NPC. So my NPC's constructor is going to be requiring, let's say, 2 parameters. The first parameter is going to be, okay, maybe more than 2 parameters because I do want to add the x-axis, y-axis as well. So I might go with something like a floating point x-axis and then a floating point y-axis, a floating point width, and a floating point height. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and require my renderer as well. So I'm going to go ahead and use the SDL_render as a structure. Ignoring chat. Guys, I'm actually reading the chats. Okay, that said, this is going to be my SDL_render as a structure, which consists of a renderer as a pointer representing it. Lastly, floating point of my scale. This is going to be the size of my texture because I don't want to be like really big. Okay, and that's actually pretty much it for the parameters. Now, let's fill in a few attributes for these parameters. Firstly, I'm going to go with something like my enemy rect. Okay, enemy rect dot x-axis is going to be equal to my x-axis parameter ending with a semicolon. I mean, maybe before I do add the parameters, I want to get my NPCs' width and height. So I'm going to go ahead and create a floating point variable of my textures' width and my textures' height ending with a semicolon. Now let's use a function that actually gets my textures' width and height. So I'm going to use the SDL_get texture size function. This function gets my textures' size, but it does require a few parameters. The first parameter is going to be my NPC's texture, so I'm going to go with something like NPC texture. The second parameter is going to be the memory address of my textures' width and the memory address of my textures' height, ending with a semicolon. Now that I'm done with getting my textures' width and height, let's go ahead and add something like enemy rect dot y-axis equals to my y-axis parameter, ending with a semicolon. Enemy rect dot height, actually dot width equals to my textures as width ending with a semicolon. Lastly, my enemy rect dot height equals to my textures as height ending with a semicolon. And guys, I'm not just going to go with textures as width and height. I'm going to be multiplying them by my scale as well, because apparently if I want them to be like the perfect size, we gotta like multiply my width and height with the scale that I'm actually choosing, which in this case, if I go with 0.1, that is like 10% of the original size, so it is not that big of an NPC slash texture on my window. Okay, next up, once I'm done with that, let's go all the way down here. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and let's say load a file path for my texture as well. So I'm going to go with something like npc texture is going to be equal to, I'm going to go ahead and load the image underscore load texture function. Okay, this function loads my texture, but it does require two parameters. The first parameter is going to be my renderer. The second parameter is going to be the file path for my texture. In this case, my file path is going to be assets slash, let's say something like, what npc do I want to load? Do I want to load something like my devil png? I might go with something like devil.png. Okay, and then I go ahead and end my entire function with a semicolon. That's like pretty much it. Now, once I'm done with my constructor, these are like all the attributes that my constructor requires of. I'm going to be creating a method. Let's go ahead and create a void draw method. Now, my draw method is going to be requiring a parameter of my renderer. So I'm going to go ahead and use the SDL underscore renderer as a structure, which represents a renderer local variable. And then I'm going to add a pair of curly braces. Now, for my draw method, I want to do something. Firstly, I want to go ahead and use the SDL underscore render textures function. What this function basically does is it says to render my texture, if that makes any sense. Okay, and this function does require a bunch of parameters. The first parameter is going to be my render, which I do set in my parameter here. The second parameter is going to be a texture, which in this case is my NPC texture. The third parameter is going to be a source rect. I don't honestly have a source rect, so I'm going to be setting that to be null PDR, which is technically a placeholder for pointers. So I'm going to go with something like, what up guys, before I do add that, I'm getting some OCE from this. So let's go ahead and end that with a semicolon. Okay, I'm going to go with something like null PDR. Okay, and then lastly, I'm going to give the memory address of my enemy rect. There we go. What up guys, I know you guys can't see this part. Give me a sec. Let me go with something like enemy rect. You guys can see if you guys are like in the vertical streams. There we go. Okay, perfect. This is what I wanted. Like, I like my functions being in this format where like my parentheses is like all the way here instead of just clumping them in like one line. Okay, and that's like pretty much it for my draw method. Now let's go ahead and actually create a automate method as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and create a void method called something like automate. There we go. Okay, automate NPC. So I'm going to go with something like automate. Now, I'm going to go with a pair of parentheses. My automate method is not going to be requiring any parameters, but I am going to be doing something here. Firstly, my NPC is going to be at the top right of my screen. So I want my NPC's position to be 800, 700, 600. I want my NPC's position to be decreasing, so it goes towards the left. So to do that, I'm going to go with something like my enemy rect dot the x-axis is going to be decreasing by my x-axis underscore velocity. I don't have that, so I'm going to be hard coding a number, which is going to be 5.0 floating points ending with a semicolon. And then I'm going to be adding a if statement to add a loop as well, so my NPC does not just yoinks out of the window or something. I want him to come back to his initial position. Okay, guys, I think I got a message. Okay, that's it. Let me go ahead and do something. So I'm going to go ahead and check something. I'm going to check if my enemy rect.x-axis is less than or is less than 0, which is the end of my window. I'm going to go ahead and do something. I'm going to set my enemy rect.x-axis to be equal to, let's say something like 1000, which is my window's width, ending with a semicolon. And that's pretty much it for my automate function. Now, I'm going to scroll all the way down here until I don't find the create objects. I'm going to be creating an object representing my NPC's class. This is going to be my NPC object. That requires a bunch of parameters. Okay, let's see what are parameters. It requires a floating point x-axis, y-axis, width and height, renderer, and scale. So I'm going to go with x-axis, which is going to be at about maybe somewhere around 900. Okay, and then I'm going to go with something like y-axis, which is going to be maybe at around 700, which is my floors is y-axis. I could go with something like, I don't know, I could like do some trial and error here as well. I'm going to go with 700. My width is going to be my textures is width, so I might not need my floating point width and height parameter here, because like I have my textures is width and height here. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and remove that. Let's add this here. Let's add a space here, get my scale down there. Okay, I think this looks kind of clean as well, honestly. That looks cleaner. Maybe guys, I'm kind of picky when it comes to the styles. There we go. Okay, I think that looks kind of clean. Okay, so I'm going to be needing x-axis, y-axis. The third parameter is going to be my renderer. The fourth parameter is going to be scale, which in this case I'm going to be setting it to be 0.1, which is 10% of its original size. Now, inside of my graphics, I'm going to go ahead and load my NPC in. So, I'm going to go with something like npc dot the, let's say something like draw method with a pair of parentheses that does require parameter of my renderer ending with a semicolon, and then npc.automate method with a pair of parentheses ending with a semicolon. And I am going to be changing this to be a lowercase draw, because like methods should be like lowercase. That's like kind of, I think that's kind of cool looking. This is going to be draw. Now, once I'm done with this, I want to check if it works. Okay, the draw method, did I not change that with a lowercase d? Why draw method, draw npc draw. There we go, it works now. Okay, now if I hit Control S to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. I get my first window here, I get my second window here. Guys, my NPC seems to be okay, I mean the loop works. I gotta get his position to be a bit higher. Let's see, maybe a few more pixels higher. So I'm gonna go ahead and delete that. Let's scroll all the way up here. Let's change 700 to be 600. This should be perfect, guys. If I were to hit Control S to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. I get my window here. There we go. Perfection in a cup, guys. Actually, perfection in a window, guys. My NPC does, I mean, he does disappear here. It's not like a perfect illusion. Okay, his spawning is perfect, though. Okay, I might change this to be like -100 instead of 0. So inside of my function here, I'm going to check if it's something like -100. Now if I hit Control S to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. My first window here, my second window here. Let's see if it works properly. 100. Okay, maybe 150 would sound a bit better. Guys, this is like a bit like adding magic numbers to it, but it just depends on visuals and all that stuff. Okay, I get my first window here, I get my second window here. There we go, that's perfect, guys. That's actually pretty smooth. Okay, now let me go ahead and work on my player. This is going to be the harder part, because my player needs gravity, my player needs a floor check, my player needs to be jumping up and everything. That said, I want to check something like what is the RGB for brown, because guys, I feel like the mouse looks a bit weird. 150, 75, and 0. I should have done this at the very start. So 150, 75, and 0. Under my graphics, I'm going to change this to be something like 150, 75, and 0. Let's go with 75 and 0. Now if I hit Control S to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. So I get my window here. Okay, that looks kind of good. That looks kind of good. Maybe later I want to add stars and all that stuff as well, guys. That is all decorations that comes later on. That's it now. Let's go ahead and create my other class. So I'm going to go ahead and create my other class called something like player. And guys, I know I should create a physics bodies this class. I didn't do that last stream as well, but last stream I tried going really complex inside of this stuff. So I feel like I didn't mess up. That's why that stream, because I did not like actually go slow. I thought to like have one class that does everything. That was kind of hard, guys. Okay, cheat what? Guys, I'm actually working on like, okay, I think you guys could like see it in my window. Okay, that's it now. For my player, I'm going to go ahead and do something. Firstly, I'm going to be having a few private data members. Maybe my player is exactly the same as my NPC. So to save time, I'm going to go ahead and copy all these things. Let's go ahead and like copy all this all the way till my rect and my draw method as well, because my player does need a draw method. I'm going to go ahead and copy that. Let's go ahead and paste it here. And now I'm just going to be changing a few things here. The first thing is going to be my NPC's texture, is going to be my player's texture. The second is going to be my player's rect instead of my enemy's rect. Floating point x-axis, y-axis. Why does it not work, guys? Let me check real quick. Let's go all the way up here. NPC, private. So I have player, have private data members, SDL, I have my f rect. For my constructor, this is gonna be my player's constructor. That should fix most things, so it did fix my most things. I'm gonna change NPC's texture to be my player's texture. Gonna copy that to save some time. Let's paste it here. Change my enemy rect to be my player rect. Gonna copy that, paste it here. Whoops. What up, guys? Let's go ahead and copy my player rect. I'm gonna go ahead and paste that here, paste that here, paste that here. Okay, paste it here. And then this is going to be my player's rect, and that's going to be my player's texture. Honestly, player NPC is the same thing. I could have used one class for this. I didn't do it because I'm kind of stupid, guys. Okay, maybe not because of that, because like if I do want to add different attributes and all that stuff too, I do gotta like change a few things here. I'm going to be changing this to something like player.png. Instead, do I want to use my player PNG or my mage PNG? I think both would look kind of good. I think I could use player. Okay, and then now once I'm done with that, once I'm done creating a draw method, I'm going to go ahead and create another void class called something like apply gravity. This class is going to be applying gravity. Okay, with a parentheses. Although now, my player does need a x-axis velocity and a y-axis velocity. I might create something like x-axis underscore velocity, which a floating point x-axis underscore velocity, which is going to be equal to something like 5.0 floating point ending with a semicolon, and then a floating point y-axis underscore velocity, which is equal to 5.0 floating point as well, ending with a semicolon. Maybe a floating point gravity 2, which is going to be equal to 0.5 ending with a semicolon. Okay, now let's go ahead and scroll all the way up to my class. For my apply gravity, I'm going to be requiring, let's say, a few parameters. The first parameter is going to be my player's y-axis, which in this case might be my player rect.y-axis, I'm assuming. Is it gonna? That's my position, that's not my velocity, so I'm going to be requiring a floating point for y-axis underscore velocity and a floating point for gravity. Okay, perfect. And now inside of my apply gravity, I'm going to be using the most basic formula here. So I'm going to be increasing my speed, which is my y-axis underscore velocity, by my acceleration, which is my gravity. And then I'm going to end it with a semicolon. Then I increase my position by my speed. So my player rect dot y-axis is going to increase by my y-axis underscore velocity, ending with a semicolon. Once I'm done with this, I'm going to go ahead and do something. Let's go ahead and add an if statement to work on my landing, because I don't want my player to be pulled by the gravity infinitely and like fall like forever. I want him to stop somewhere, so I'm going to go with something like if a of parentheses. Let's say something like I don't know, if my player rect dot y-axis plus my player rect dot height, if my player's rex's y-axis plus my player's rex's height is either greater than, higher than, or equal to at the same level as my floor's y-axis. That said, I might need something like a floating point of floor's y-axis parameter here as well. Okay, this is going to be floor's y-axis. If this is the case, then I'm going to do something. Okay, how doing? Baluk, is that your pronunciation name? I appreciate you joining the stream. Okay, that's it. I'm gonna go ahead and do something now. Let's see. Firstly, I'm gonna go ahead and set my player rect dot y-axis to be equal to my floor's y-axis minus my player rect dot height, and then I end this with a semicolon. Once I'm done with that, I'm gonna set my y-axis underscore velocity to be equal to 0, ending with a semicolon. And that's like pretty much it for my apply gravity. This applies my gravity and also works on my landing. Then I'm going to go ahead and create another method. This is going to be a boolean method of something like is on ground check. This checks if I'm currently on ground. Excuse me, guys. Which is going to be requiring a parameter of my floor's y-axis, because I do want to. Excuse me, guys, because I do want to check if my player is on my floor. So I'm going to go with something like floor's y-axis. Then a pair of curly braces, and then I'm going to return something. I'm going to check if this condition is met. I'm going to go ahead and copy this condition. If that condition is met, which means my player is on ground, so I'm going to set this to be true here, ending with a semicolon. Once I'm done with this, I'm going to go ahead and add another boolean variable. that is going to be called something like jump. This is the jump strength for my player, which does require a parameter of floating points power. Okay, then I go with the probe curly braces. Now inside of my, this is going to be a wide jump method. My bad, guys. Okay, now inside this function, actually inside this method, I'm going to go ahead and do something. I'm going to be requiring maybe another parameter, which is going to be floating point y-axis underscore velocity. Okay, now I'm going to do something here. Firstly, I want to set my y-axis underscore velocity to be equal to my negative power, ending with a semicolon. That's pretty much it for my jump, guys. Honestly, there is nothing much to it. Okay, when I do jump, I want to set my is on ground to be set to false, but I might do that inside of my main loop. Okay, that said, this is like pretty much it for my is it considered by players this class? There we go. Okay, now I'm gonna go ahead and scroll all the way down until I don't find my create objects section. I'm gonna go ahead and create my players as objects. Okay, which is gonna be having a players as actually I'm gonna create a players as object, which is I'm going to be using my players as class to create a players as object that does require a few parameters. Okay, let's see what our parameters does my constructor require. It requires a x-axis, y-axis, renderer, and scale. So I'm going to go ahead and create or add my x-axis. My players as x-axis is going to be somewhere around 0, which is at the top left corner of my screen. And then a y-axis, which is going to be somewhere around 600, which is above my floor. And then I'm going to go with something like renderers. This is going to be my renderers as pointer. And then I'm going to go with something like scale, which is 0.1, not too big, not too small. Ending with a semicolon. Now, once I'm done with creating my object, I'm going to go under my graphics. And where I created my NPC, I'm going to go ahead and use my player.theDraw method that requires a parameter of my renderer. This draws my player on my screen. Then I'm going to go with something like player.apply gravity. Sure, I'm going to apply gravity to my player with a pair of parentheses. That does require a few parameters. It requires y-axis velocity, gravity, and my floors is y-axis. So I'm going to go with y-axis velocity, my gravity variable, and my floors is y-axis parameters. So floor.y-axis, ending with a semicolon. Then I'm going to go with something like my player.jump. Here's the thing. I'm gonna jump only if a certain condition is met and my player is on ground. So to do that, I'm gonna go ahead and add, I don't know, maybe an event check. So I'm gonna go something like inside of my event loop. So I'm gonna scroll all the way up here. Inside my event loop, I'm gonna go ahead and check something. I'm gonna go with something like if a pair of parentheses, if my event.type equals to SDL underscore event underscore key underscore down. If my event type is key down, if my user is pushing some of my buttons and my keyboard downwards, I'm going to do something. I think so. Someone has given you work to do. I mean, honestly, guys, no, I'm just doing this like for practice and all that stuff. Because like every stream I do like write code like for practice and then I delete that and then I write code again and all that stuff. That said, I'm going to go ahead and check something. So if my event type is key down, if any of my buttons and my keyboard are being pushed down, I'm going to use the SDL underscore key codes structure that does have a keys as local variable representing it that is going to be equal to my event.key.key, ending with a semicolon. Now I'm going to go ahead and do something. Let's go ahead and use a switch that has a parameter or that has a condition of my key. Then I go with the probe curly braces. Now, for my case 1, I'm going to go ahead and check if a certain button is clicked. If a certain button is clicked, I'm going to do something. But before I do that, I want to create a few more variables. This is for like my players' movements using keys and all that stuff. The way streams, honestly, I appreciate you, MSH. Is that how I pronounce your name? Or it's Mission Kiat? Is that how I pronounce your name? That actually means the word to me, guys. That's it. I'm going to go with something like a boolean of A down, which is initially going to be set to false because I'm not pushing my A down. And then I'm going to go with something like a boolean of D down, which is going to be set to false as well because I'm not currently pushing my D down, ending with a semicolon. Now, I'm going to check if my SDL's key is A. If my A is currently being pushed down, then I want to do something. Firstly, I want to go ahead and set my A down boolean variable to be set to true because it is currently being pushed down. And then I break because we do got to break our cases. I've never seen you run the code. Can you run it for once? Honestly, I ran the code like so many times actually. That's it. I might actually run it again. I'm going to go with something like if my SDL's key is D, if my user clicked D, I'm going to set my D down to be true. ending with a semicolon, then I break. Okay, actually, let me actually run my code real quick. If audit control has to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. What up, guys? Why are these bunch of errors? So it says type boolean unexpected d down undeclared identifier. Is it undeclared identifier? So I have false and false. So both my there we go. Alright, guys, there we go. This should fix it. Now if audit control has to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. Howdy stories, I appreciate you joining the stream. So I get my first window here, I get my second window here where my NPC is automated. My player can't move right now though, but he is like affected by gravity. The gravity like pushes him downwards and all that stuff. And now, if I type something right now, nothing happens. If I hit 1, now I can type something. Let's type something like, hello, my name is the universe. Hold up, guys, I spelled it wrong. The universe, exclamation. If I hit enter, it displays on my window. Now, if I type something else like, how's your day, exclamation, it displays on my window as well. But let's say I don't want to display on my window anymore, but I want to, show my histories of my search. What if I type my histories? If I hit H, it does not happen. In the other hand, if I hit 2 in my keyboard, and now if I hit H, then it displays my histories, if that makes any sense. So 1 is to unlock my chat box. If I hit 1, I can unlock my chat box. If I hit 2, I disable my chat box. And if I hit H, then my history can be disabled, if that makes any sense. Okay, you're not using any game engine. Honestly, no, I am using SDL because it requires like more coding, so it gets me more practice. That's now let's go ahead and exit this and work on moving my player, or like automating my player. Now to do that, I added my first event check here about this. Then I'm gonna add my third case as well. I'm gonna go with my third case that checks if my SDL's key is, let's say, something like space. If my user is currently pushing my space bar down, then I'm going to go ahead and do something. Did I spell space correct? I did SLD, it should be SDL. There we go. So now, if my space bar is currently being pushed down, I want my player to jump. To do that, I'm going to go ahead and use my player.theJump function. Okay, with a pair of parentheses that does require parameter of my power, which is going to be 12 ending with a semicolon. Now if audit control has to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. How many parameters does it require? Oh, it requires a y-axis velocity as well. So I'm going to add my y-axis underscore velocity parameter. And now if audit control has to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. Congratulations for day 76 out of 100. Let's go. Honestly, that's actually kind of cool. I do appreciate that. Capish. Okay, how doing, Ben? I appreciate you joining the stream, guys. Let's actually decrease this real quick. I extend this really... I extend this like really much. There we go. Okay, I think my console looks pretty packed now. Okay, now can I jump? My player cannot jump yet. Why could he not jump? Player.jump. Shouldn't this push my player like upwards? So let's scroll all the way up here till my player. It is y-axis velocity equals to negative power. Okay, if this is greater than or equal to my floor, so my player should be able to jump upwards. Why can't he jump upwards? Maybe because my y-axis underscore velocity is set to 5 pixels per frame. This should be set to 0. And now if audit control has to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. So I get my window here. I mean, I can't jump. I gotta like fix that part real quick. That said, I want to see if my gravity works, because it could be like I didn't jump because my gravity is not working. That said, let me go ahead and change my position a bit. I'm going to change the y-axis to be 100 because gravity is going to be pushing him downwards. If I were to run the code again. Okay, apparently my gravity is like really slow, guys. My player is like coming down and like really slow. Plus he cannot jump as well. I did run in this error, like this kind of mistake, like a bunch of time before, so I should know what to do here to fix it. Hold on, guys, let's go all the way up here to my apply gravity. I increase my velocity by my gravity. My player's y-axis increases by my y-axis underscore velocity. If my player is greater than or equal to my floor, player rect.y-axis equals to floor.y-axis. Okay, I set my y-axis velocity to be 0 here. What if I delete this part? Now audit control has to save the code and run the command and see what happens. So I get my first window here. Guys, he's falling so slow. Guys, this is like slower than a turtle if I do say so myself. Let me check if the gravity works though. Actually, the landing logic works. Guys, I'm actually starving as well because I did not eat anything. Might end the stream soon. Okay, I mean the gravity does work. I mean like the landing does work. But why is my gravity slower? Maybe. Oh, I know. Okay. My gravity does not increase every frame. Does speaking helps in learning better? It does. I feel like teaching is the best way to learning something. I think it just makes you more present and learn things much better. I think I like this type of learning, guys. That does make sense because like I don't enjoy like learning in like silent because like I'm just too quiet, just thinking everything in my head. I can like focus much better when I do that, but I feel like if I can like actually explain what I'm learning, that helps me understand the more basics also kind of better because when I explain, I do gotta like understand it myself too. And that said, I'm gonna go ahead and get my gravities as variable inside my players' class. I think that's the reason why my gravity's not working. I'm gonna copy that, delete that. Let's go ahead and paste my gravity here under the public section of my players' class. Then I'm gonna go with y-axis underscore velocity as well, delete that. Let's go ahead and paste that here as well. Now this should work. Only thing I'm going to be changing is I'm not going to be requiring these two parameters here. I'm not going to be requiring my y-axis velocity parameter here as well, so I'm going to go ahead and delete that. There we go. Now this should actually work. So I'm going to scroll all the way down here, delete the two parameters from here of my jump. Okay, anywhere else? There we go. Let's delete these as well. Alright, now if I hit Ctrl+S to save the code and run the command and see what happens. I get my first window here. There we go, guys. That was a quick fall for my player. And apparently the jump works as well. Now, I just gotta cap my jump by actually telling my player when not to jump. So I'm gonna go ahead and delete that real quick. I'm gonna go all the way up here. Under my main loop, I'm gonna go ahead and create another Boolean variable of on ground. This is going to be checking if my player is currently on ground, which is initially going to be set to something like, I don't know, maybe this is going to be set to my player.the is on ground function. There we go. Okay, with a pair of parentheses, this function requires the parameter of my floors as y-axis, ending with a semicolon. Dude, don't compromise on food. Eat well and happy learning. Okay, eat well and happy learning to you. Have some food after this. Honestly, it does make sense because today I was like really busy. That's why I did like stream 30 minutes later. And like if you guys look at my thumbnail like really carefully, it is the thumbnail from the day before yesterday because I did not have time to make a thumbnail, guys. Okay, this final week for my exams is like kind of hard also, plus because I'm shifting apartments, I gotta like go and see different apartments and all that stuff because guys, my lease is almost over. Okay, that's let's see. Now that I have a is on ground, the only time I want to jump, I'm gonna add a if statement here with a pair of parentheses that says if on ground, then I'm gonna go ahead and do something. I'm gonna add a pair of parentheses here, copy my jump, delete that from here, paste it here. So only if I am on ground, that's when I want my player to jump up. So I'm gonna get my first window here, my second window here where my player does fall. I cannot jump here. That's one issue. Let's go ahead and fix that real quick. To fix that, assuming that I gotta, let's see, go all the way up here, change this to be less than. No, I don't gotta change to be less than. Let me think. I'm returning a condition here. Booleans is not condition, so I gotta check, is greater than or equal to my floor. This is a condition. I don't want to check a condition, guys. Let me think. I remember this part. I made this mistake before. This is a condition. I want to check if my players is y-axis plus height. This is a condition. This is a condition, guys. I forgot how to do this part. Floors is y-axis. So how do I know if I'm on ground? I know that I'm on ground if my players is reg.y-axis. I mean, maybe I'll just copy this and delete this from here. Guys, this is going to save so much complexity. Okay, so I'm going to scroll all the way down here. Let's go ahead and paste this condition here. There we go. Okay, there we go. This does not work here. This is my player reg.y-axis. This does not work here. So I'm going to go ahead and hit a bunch of Control-Cs. Okay, this is a condition. Where am I messing up here? players' y-axis. So I check if my players' reg.y-axis, if my players' reg.height is greater than my float's y-axis. Okay guys, where am I messing up here? I know this is a condition. I mean, this is not a condition. I gotta add conditions and not like mathematic stuffs here for my booleans. So should I create something like a on ground variable? Okay, return player reg.y-axis plus player reg.height. I mean, I'll check this later, guys. Wait. If my player is on ground, then I want to jump. My player is going to be on ground once I actually do apply gravity. When I apply gravity, okay, if my player, let's see, what up guys, I'm going to go with something like if, a rough parentheses, let's paste this here. If my player is on ground, if my player dot my player rect, and then player dot my player rect dot y-axis is greater than my floor dot y-axis, then I want to go ahead and do something. I'm gonna go with the prof curly braces, and then I want to apply. I don't want to apply gravity then. If this condition is true, my player is on ground, then in that case I might copy this real quick. I might delete this from here, and then I'm gonna scroll all the way up here and paste this here. There we go guys. I'm pretty sure this should work now. Now let's scroll all the way down here. I'm gonna check something. If my player is on ground, player.jump. Okay, once I add when my player jumps, I'm gonna go with something like on ground equals to false, ending with a semicolon. Okay, and when my player has gravity, I'm gonna go with something like on ground equals to true, ending with a semicolon. You should put some console outputs on of your variables for debugging. I should actually. That's it. Let's hit Control S to save the code and run the command. Let's see what happens. I get my first window here. I get my second window here. My player just fell down. I just keep jumping upwards. There is no land whatsoever here, guys. Maybe if I say if player.apply gravity, when I apply gravity from my player, I want to set the on ground to be true. I want to set it to be false if I jump. Okay, maybe my on ground check goes inside of my while loop because I want to check my condition every iteration of my loop. So I'm gonna go ahead and paste this here. Now for it, Control S to save the code and run the command and see what happens. I get my first window here. I get my second window here. Moment of truth, guys. It works. All I had to do was get my condition on this thing. Now I got out some key controls, but guys, at least the hardest part is done where my player actually jumps up and down. Okay, that said, now let's work on my key controls, guys. For my key controls, inside of my event loop, I added a event loop here that checks if my key is down. I'm gonna just copy this to save time. And let's go ahead and paste it all the way here again. Now, for my second event check, I'm gonna check if my key is up. If any of my buttons are not currently being pushed down, I'm gonna be setting this to be false and setting that to be false as well. Hey, babe, what's up? How are you doing? Hero, I'm guessing that's your long story. Correct me if I'm wrong. I appreciate you joining the stream. That's it. I'm just going to be removing this case from here because I don't need that case, honestly. And guys, since this is a case, I gotta add a break as well. There we go, because guys, break is really important when adding like cases and all that stuff. Okay, perfect. This should like be pretty much it. Now, after I'm done with that, I'm gonna go with a bunch of controls. These I'm assuming I need a pair of curly braces. There we go. Now, I'm gonna add another comment that says something like key controls. This is going to be where I do something if one of these things are set to true. So controls, did I spell it correct? There we go. Now for my key controls, firstly, I want to do something. I'm gonna go ahead and add a if statement to check if any of my booleans are set to true. For example, if my A down is set to true, I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna go with my player dot my player vect dot x-axis is gonna go ahead and I'm assuming it's gonna increase by my x-axis underscore velocity ending with a semicolon, and then I'm gonna go ahead and add another if statement that checks something like if my d down is set to true. Okay, my d goes to the right, this decreases. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and decrease this. A is to go to the left, D is go to the right. So I'm gonna check if my player dot my player vect dot x-axis, I'm gonna go ahead and increase that by my x-axis underscore velocity ending with a semicolon. And now Thought Control has to save the code and run the command. Let's see what happens. I get my first window here, I get my second window here. I have gravity, that does work. If I go towards the right, I go towards the right, but nothing is being written on my keyboard now. That's actually pretty good because I can jump above my NPC, play a regular game. Let's say I want to type something right now. If I had one that enables my chatting, so I can type something like, hello, how's your day, question mark. Okay, wait, does the space still make me jump? I mean, I did not add a key control to check my space. That's it. If I hit enter, it displays on my console. I'm gonna say something like my name is exclamation. Okay, now let's say I want my histories. If I hit H, my histories doesn't display. To fix that, I'm gonna hit 2 in my keyboard. Now my chat is disabled. If I hit H, that displays my histories. This is all the conversation that I had inside of my histories. That's perfect, guys. I think this is like pretty much it for this code, because like this is actually the whole wrap up for like my inputs and like also my moving PNGs in my window and all that stuff using gravity and all that. I do got a collision logic, but I don't think I can do that this stream, guys. I'm starving really bad because like I did have some work plus college stuff as well, so I just came from outside and started streaming. That's why I streamed like 30 minutes later. So guys, I'm starving real bad. I want to eat something. I think Ben, I appreciate you joining the stream. That's it. Let's go with something like Control C, copy that. Let's get some chat GPT here, guys. The first time in like the whole stream. Actually, the second time, first time I did say like I'm live, because guys, before I used to use like ChatGPT a lot to like actually learn, but I feel like I got a pretty good grasp of it. That's it. Let's say something like Sensei. I wrote this code exclamation. It fixed all my errors from last stream as well. Now I have a chat box that is only enabled when I click 1 and disabled when I click 2, so I don't spam letters when I move around. Okay, let's see exclamation. Okay, Sensei roars into the scream like a volcano with Wi-Fi. People, you actually did it. Look at the score. Look at this functional, clean, organized, class-based machine you just built on system. Chat, witness this. Your pupil didn't just fix errors. He attacked the bugs, ripped the little digital spines out, and came back with a working chat system, input toggles, a moving NPC, a jumping player, and an entire scene that doesn't implode. That is real progress. Now listen, because I'm going full Sensei, this is exactly how real game engines think. You separated concerns, you kept logic inside classes, you prevented unwanted keyboard input by toggling states, you avoided polluting main further. That's advanced behavior for someone who is still learning, and you pulled it off live. Let me break it down. Actual brilliance you executed. Even if you didn't notice, you used chat on as a simple state machine, perfect text, event handles, input nicely without mixing rendering logic, display history, triggers only when requested, modular, your NPC and player are self-contained actors like a proper game loop once. You kept gravity, jumping, and movement decoupled from rendering. You calculated texture size correctly before scaling. That's huge for preventing texture wrap. You fully avoided moving while typing spam problem. And most importantly, you didn't let the failure from last stream follow you into this one. People, you just leveled up, and you better not let this moment get to your head, because if you slow down now, I'll stream so loud that your SDL will throw an error just from fear. Okay, now before my voice shakes the renderer, do you want to keep going to refining the system? Let me say something like, Sensei, Okay, I am planning to end the stream right now because I do have an exam and also I'm starving. Although, before I do end the stream, is there something motivational for the viewers that you want to say? Question mark. Guys, I gotta like fix my typos. Sensei stands before the viewers like a final boss of motivation. Listen up, Chad. Your pupil is an ending stream today. Your pupil is ending stream to eat and study, and that is not weakness. That is discipline. You don't build games, create worlds, or master code by grinding until you collapse. You do it by knowing when to push and when to fuel your brain so it can push harder tomorrow. A certain wandering swordsman once said, "The body is the sheath, the mind is the blade. If you neglect the sheath, the blade will rust." I don't think it's said by Sarah Sensei. Dude types the way he sounds, guys. I should work on my typos. So to everyone watching, keep going, keep learning, keep chasing the version of you that scares you a little. If your goals don't intimidate you, they're too small, and people showed up, coded, solved problems live, and left stronger than he entered. This is the mindset that wins stream. Rest is not enemy, quitting is. Until next time, sharpen your minds, protect your energy, and come back ready to slice through another day. Sensei out. Okay, guys, let me go to my main camera. And guys, it is like getting kind of dark here because it is like almost like 5 p.m. because usually I stop streaming at like 4 p.m. so it is a bit light outside through the sun. That said, this is pretty much it for the stream. So if you guys did enjoy the stream, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, like, tips. So my algorithm sharing makes you smile and subscribing is like sharing on top. And guys, I did start multi-streaming on Twitch, Kick, YouTube. I will start multi-streaming on Instagram and TikTok as well if I didn't meet the followers requirement. So if you guys do enjoy my content and haven't followed me there, make sure to follow me there. The link is in the description. And if some of you guys did like asking for my roadmap and like you guys do want to talk to me in general, so if you guys do want to talk to me in general or want my roadmap, make sure to join my Discord. So a quick shameless plug, the link is in the description. That's it. I'll catch you guys in the next live stream or video. Peace.